Hey there, it's Will. I'm going to do a video on the markets and look at some sectors, ETFs, and some stocks. And so let's jump into it. So I've got a watch list here on TC2000, which is the S&P, Russell 2000, Dow Jones, NASDAQ. I also look at the VIX, which is the volatility index, the Toronto Stock Exchange, and the exchange rate, because I'm in Canada, just between US and Canada. So you can see with the exchange rate, like TC2000 has this nice little drawing tablet, so you can put some lines. When you break that downtrend, you're starting to see an uptrend here. We've crossed up above the 50, so it's an upward trend in terms of the US dollar relative to Canada. But if we look at the main indices here, you can see that we've been in this big uptrend. There's been a pullback here. September is usually not a great month, so I'm not super confident right now, but you can see that it's pulling back. So I've got these lines I put at a low point. So if you see support around the 50-day moving average and it starts to go up, that could be a good entry point. And that would also be a sell point, because when you have an entry point when you buy, you should have an idea where you're going to sell. So you could, if you buy when it supports at the 50, you could stay in as long as it stays above the 50. Or if you buy right after a low point, you can just keep monitoring the lows and raise that up. And if it breaks that next previous low, you can sell at that point if you want. That's one. There's many ways to do it, but you should know your entry points and exit points. And there's different ways to do it. I've talked about that in many videos. Hopefully it gives you some ideas of what you should do for yourself, what makes sense. So the markets today have a bit of a flat, approach. You can see here, the nice thing with TC2000 is you can see the pre-market values. So here we have slightly negative views here for the indices. Russell 2000 has been in this choppy, flat period here. So one approach, if you're not going to trade like the lows, like if you're not going to buy here and sell at the top of the channel, like to buy at the low of the channel and bounce back and forth, then you might want to wait for a breakout. When you have something that stays in this really long consolidation period, it might make sense to wait till you get a breakout. And otherwise you're just going to be stuck in this channel for a while. So I'm not too excited about Russell 2000 either. Dow Jones, we had a pretty bad candle here, down candle, and we're below the 50-day as well as the 21 exponential moving average. So this isn't looking too great, but you can see what I do is I put these lows in here, and we got pretty close to that low again. So that's like kind of like a double. So I'm not too excited about this one either, but there was some support at this spot right here. So if you're buying, when you see support and a rebound off of this low, you can use that low as your, like a stop, potentially stop loss. So you could sell if it breaks that. So if your the thesis is that it's going to support at this previous low, then you should use that as your low to sell. Once it breaks that, you would have to sell it, and you can always buy back in if there's a change, like in your, in how you're buying and selling. So you don't have to sell and never look back again. You can get back in fairly quickly if you need to. Like if you're using the 50-day moving average and it breaks below the 50 and you sell, you could buy back in once it gets above the 50. And then finally we have the NASDAQ. We're still in an uptrend, but there's been a pullback here. So you could wait to see what happens, if it's, depending on where you're buying, if it's going to support at the 21 or at the 50. But everyone's sort of expecting, like I said, a slow September. So there's a challenge right now because of inflation versus deflation. So we have people that think we're going to have more inflation, so the rates are going to go up. That's going to affect negatively the tech stocks and other things. And on the other hand, you have deflation from from technology and stuff like that. So there's kind of a battle, which makes it a little bit challenging. So from the markets, you can see that I'm not super keen on this. That kind of like the top level, top down approach. You're still in an uptrend in a lot of cases, but there's been some breaks of the 50. This one, like I said, IWM is not looking great, but S&P is still in an uptrend above the 50. You get these pullbacks here, but nothing major happens. You have to see if that's going to rebound. So from there, I look at the sector ETFs. So I've got a whole bunch, another watch list. So the nice thing with TC2000, I've got these tabs, and so you can put a lot of information in a small space. If you want to get a free trial of TC2000 or $25 off the purchase, you can check out a link in the description. I've got the gold plan and US real-time data, so I can see real-time stock data, and that gives me access to this pre-market stock information, so you can see the trading in the pre-market and which is nice. So if you sort by the percent change, you're going to see the percent change for the current day or previous day, like if you're in the pre-market, depending on whether it's open yet in the market. So if we look at the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, it's actually trading right now. It says, you can see it says 8:07 a.m. So we broke back up above the 50. So like I said, it depends on when you purchased, but or what your rules are. But this could be, people are waiting right now because there's it's near a recent low. If you look at the actual Bitcoin price, the chart's different than this Bitcoin trust, but it's in a decent spot. It's the 50's would ideally be above the 200. But we have gotten above the 50-day with the prices. So you can see this whole downtrend here. The 21 was below the 50. Once the 21 gets above the 50, it's kind of an earlier entry. And if you want to wait for the 50 to get above, then you've got to wait a bit longer. But you can see just from the prices that we have higher lows here and higher highs. So we can draw a line. I draw a little support line at these lows and maybe like right here at the 50. So you can see we've hit some higher lows here. So Lithium ETF is a good one. Ideally you want to get in, you want to look back, but you're above the 50 in an uptrend. And obviously lithium is used in a lot of the electric vehicles, a lot of the alternative energy stuff. You can see where we broke this downtrend and we started to go up again. So that would be a good entry point and a series of higher lows as well. If you click on this little thing here, it says Open Component Watch List. This is kind of a nice feature. You can see stocks that are in that fund, and there's a Livent Corporation. You might want to buy the stocks individually, instead of the ETF, but it gives you, and then you can instantly see the chart. Uranium ETF has been going crazy. Again, like if you put a line here and you're waiting for it to break, you can right click on the line and set an alert when it crosses that trend line, and then you won't have to wait. And or you could say when it breaks the 50-day moving average or whatever, and you can see that there's been quite a huge upturn. So it's kind of too late to be chasing this right now, and you might want to wait for a pullback to a moving average or something, because this is really steep. Regional banks. So this is just sorted by percent change. And you can go through this, and then you can open up the watch list and see a list of banks that you might want to get into. So that's a really, really nice feature. And then Not only that, can you see the list, but you click on any of them and you instantly go to the chart for that stock. But if I click on this checkbox here, I can put scans. I can add a scan that I've got created, and I can look that up. And I create and save a bunch of scans. So these are strong relative strength, and that is compared to the S&P 500. And so lithium, as we talked about, remix, which is the rare earth metals. And so that's a similar type of fund. And you can see that we're in this really nice uptrend. Financials, they're kind of flat. So we'll have to see what happens with that, but we are in a still above the 50. Medical devices, that's in a really nice uptrend. So if you're looking for strong stocks that have a good relative strength, and the reason one of these charts down here is the relative strength versus the S&P. So we can see here that we have this uptrend and we're above the 50 and 200. So we're doing really nicely. And so, ideally you want to get in on these earlier. But like I said, if you were using the 50-day and it broke below, you could sell either some or all of your position. And then once it gets back above, so you're going to have some up and downs if you do that method. Maybe you sell a quarter, or you sell another quarter when it hits 200, or you sell 50% and another 50, and then you can buy back in. Sometimes you have this trend that stays above the 21. So if you bought it when it crossed above the 21 and you use the 21 EMA, like closing below the 21, you'd be still in. Maybe right here you would have sold. So there's different strategies. You would have 14% in that period of time. Not a huge gain, but when things are above the 21, they're pretty strong usually. So like even if it broke down below here and you could sell and buy back in, you wouldn't really lose very much, but it allows you to ride these big trends. So you have to kind of figure out what makes sense for you. Other people might buy and hold, like if you're an investor, and when you get dips, they end up buying the dips. So you could look at this momentum and see when it starts to cross up above the momentum, which is the price percent oscillator or the MACD. You could be buying when you see a momentum cross like that. It doesn't always work. Like here you have these crosses, but it's still going up. So you kind of have to use some discretion. If you can't just solely look at one indicator to make your decision. So I think that's good for now. If you want to get TC2000, as I mentioned, and get $25 off to purchase, you can check out the link in the description below. I've also got other links for TradingView, which I use a lot for crypto, Binance, and for buying cryptos and things like that. So good luck, and we'll talk to you in the next video.